Today we're going to be working on a floating clothes advertisement that I borrowed from a Photoshop tutorial. This is not a Mr. Trenton original idea, just a disclosure about that right off the bat. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new layer, Command-Shift-N. We're going to call this Clone Stamp 1, and what we need to do is we need to take out the hands and the feet and the head in order to make it look like it's floating clothes. So let's focus on the left hand for right now. Z for zoom. I'll zoom into that hand, and I can spacebar to drag it over. I've got my clone stamp layer, and the reason I got a new layer is in case I make a mistake, it's not going to be on the original layer. S for clone stamp. I need to make sure that the all layers sampling mode is clicked. If I don't, obviously I'm on a layer that's blank and I won't select anything inside of that. The clone stamp is a tool that you have to have a sample from. And if I hold down Option Alt, it turns into the crosshairs. You can see that from what I already had selected into Option Alt. And if I click here, and then I can drag that and just bring my clone stamp right over the top. And I can just drag that over like that. And I just keep taking samples, and eventually, and I drag like this, eventually my hand's just going to go away. And sometimes I have to make individual stamps because it's not wanting to take it all away. And I'm going to get this area right in here because it's a nice mid-tone gray right in here. Just like that again. And we just keep clicking that right on out of there. And then we'll click this because there's some, a white into a gray in here, so it needs to be pretty specific. And I'm just clone stamping this right out. We'll take another couple samples up here. And a little too much. Go back. And I'll take Option Alt, click here, and drag that right out of there. A few more examples. And then we're going to go right into the hand. You notice every time it turns into a crosshair, I'm simply just holding the Option Alt key to take another sample from somewhere else. And right here is where it's got the best mid-tone grays in there, so it will be easier to blend those two together. All right, now if I zoom back out, I got everything except for the little piece of the hand right up there. So we'll clone stamp that, S clone stamp. Take a sample and just clone stamp that right out. And I go back to my layers panel, and if I click off there, you can see where my new clone stamp is. It's on a new layer, so I don't screw up the original layer in case I ever want to go back to it. And I don't do this too often, but we're going to use the blur tool to really blend that background. And the reason we're going to use the blur tool is because the background is just so simple. So I'm going to click on the smudge tool right now. We'll go back to the blur. I have to be on a selected layer. And if I just take this, I can blur all that together. And because it's a very simple background, it works. And notice there's a few oopses in there. It just pulled off the edge. So we'll take the smudge tool and just smudge it right back off to the edge up there, just like that. And we can just do a little stuff like that for housekeeping. All right, next thing I want to do is I actually want to fill in that sleeve so it looks realistic. So I'm going to hit Command-Shift-N, and I'm going to call this sleeve. Hit Return. I got a new layer. I'm going to go to my marquee tool. I'm already in the elliptical marquee. And I'm just going to make a marquee that's about the size of the sleeve, like that. And then I'm going to right-click it. I'm going to fill. And I've already got white clicked. You got a bunch of different options, but we're just going to fill it with white since it's white. Hit OK. And I'm going to go up to Edit, Transform, and Skew so that it looks like it's going over the top of the actual sleeve. Just place it right on there, just like that. I can hit Return to apply that. I haven't let go of the marquee yet because I want to do a little bit of shadow creation in there. So I'm going to hit B for brush. Make sure you're on a really soft edge brush. And if you go to swatches, you've got a real nice white to mid-tone gray and a little bit darker mid-tone gray to black. We're going to start with one of the darker mid-tone grays, and I'm just going to brush in the outside down here to make it look like it's actually three-dimensional inside there, because that's the goal here, is to make it look like it's a three-dimensional sleeve inside there. And I can just keep adding a little bit darker and like that, and maybe just a smidget of like a real dark color here and dark color there. Command D to deselect, Z, zoom back out, and now it looks like he has no arm right there. The only other one that I'm going to show you, because it's a demo right now, is I want to show you how to use the clone stamp a little bit for taking the bottom left foot out that's in front out as well. So Command-Shift-N for new layer, clone stamp 2, and then I'm going to zoom into its foot, just like that. And you can see my layers panel. There's my layer. S for clone stamp. This is going to be a really easy clone stamp because of the fact that all this area is white. Option-Alt, take a selected area, and I can just clone stamp that right out. And I gotta be careful because it's trying to, I told you before, it's trying to keep that arrow that I have right there dragged along with it. So I just need to keep reducing the size in order to make that go away, just like that. All right, and so basically that's done. There's my second clone stamp, Command-Shift-M for a new layer. We're gonna call this pant leg opening, or whatever you want to call it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my lasso tool, and I'm just going to freehand draw in here because the overall shape of the pants is not a perfect circle or anything like that. So if I mess it up, it's not that big of a deal. I'm just trying to get the basic shape in here. And now that I've got that selected, I'm going to take my eyedropper and I'm going to just take a point sample. And I got to be on the correct layer. There's my point sample. Go back to my pant leg. Hit G for gradient, which I'm on the paint bucket right now. And I'm just going to fill in that overall color. And I want to do that because if there's any area that I end up missing or that I don't have, I want it to be just automatically filled with a color that's very similar to it, so it's easier to blend this. Go back to my clone stamp. I'm going to take a sample. You can see I still have a previous sample, so I have to hit Option-Alt, click on the pants leg, and I can bring in a few samples of that right here, and it's starting to look like it's part of the pants in here. Oops. I'm going to take just a little bit bigger sample. I actually like that little cuff right there that's happening. So we'll bring that down just like that. Keep working with this until it's perfect. The one thing I want to show you is I've already done this in another image, so I'm going to zoom in to the image. You can see there's a little bit more work right there that I've done, and I go around and clean up the edges. I just cut out the foot in this image, and I need to continue to work on that. I cut out the backhand. I need to clone stamp the collar up there, and I've already got this one out, and you can see it's a much nicer gradient background back there for my original. And then if I go to the image that I am borrowing this lesson plan off the web, here's the original image, and the original artist did a fantastic job. You got the sleeves out. The pants looks absolutely fantastic. They clone stamp the collar because the collar would not look like this anyway. But they clone stamp the collar right up. So this is just a repetition of the collar over and over again, here and here. And then they cut out the head and they put just a light gray in there so it looks really cool. And then they put it in the clothing ad. And this is where I got my lesson plan idea. And so all you have to do is master the clone stamp, soft brush, and just make sure you're focused on detail. You can easily get yourself out of the image, and then you can go back, add brushes and everything from your previous Photoshop schema in so that it is a clothing advertisement.